Early on the morning of July 20th, 1944, a Nazi staff car sped through a forest in East Prussia. Riding in it, a German army officer carrying a bomb. He was on his way to a personal meeting with the Führer himself, Adolf Hitler. The story of the extraordinary plot to kill Hitler at the height of World War II will be the first stop on our journey into the strange, the bizarre, the unexpected. Watch a human flamethrower at work in Mexico City. Discover the remarkable ostrich people of Zambezi Valley. Witness the amazing parting of the seas during the miracle of Moses in Korea. Take a course in the fine art of studying garbage. Grab a handful of worms that work for a living, eating sewage. Survive the astounding tests of martial arts skills in China. Transform the pavements of Paris into temporary masterpieces. Kick up your heels to win an offbeat athletic contest. Join an exotic Australian egg-laying mammal for a lunch of termites. Take a precarious seat above a New York City street. Visit a homemade exhibit where industrial waste becomes a work of art. Swing a sledgehammer in a death-defying display of physical skill in China. The strange, the bizarre, the unexpected. These are the kinds of subjects a man named Robert L. Ripley challenged us to
believe it or not.
As World War II became increasingly disastrous for Nazi Germany, Adolf Hitler began to avoid his country's devastated cities. He spent more and more of his time in remote, isolated places like the secret military headquarters he called Wolf's Lair. A completely self-contained compound, Wolf's Lair was guarded by crack troops. But even they could not defend Hitler against a plot hatched by his own officers. Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg was the plot's key man. Disillusioned by the failure of Hitler's war plans, he volunteered to carry a live bomb into a meeting with the Führer. Once at Wolf's Lair, von Stauffenberg asked for a private room and a few minutes to himself. He said he wanted to put on a fresh shirt before meeting his Führer. Von Stauffenberg had been a frontline fighting officer. His combat career had been ended by terrible wounds sustained in Rommel's North Africa campaign. He'd lost an eye, all of his right hand, and some of his left. To arm the bomb, von Stauffenberg had to break a small glass vial, but he had only these two fingers and his thumb. And he had to work quickly. If von Stauffenberg failed now, he might never get another chance. Finally, he managed to break the capsule. Acid inside the capsule now dripped onto a thin metal strip within the bomb. In about 10 minutes, the acid would eat through the strip, release a trigger, and detonate the blast that was to kill Hitler. The meeting was already well underway by the time von Stauffenberg joined it. The conference room was crowded with high-ranking officers. Hitler stood near the door by a wicker stool. Field Marshal Keitel, chief of the Armed Forces High Command, introduced the Führer to von Stauffenberg. The two men shook hands. Keitel suggested that von Stauffenberg begin his report immediately, but fortunately for von Stauffenberg, Hitler was deeply involved in a discussion about Russian advances in the East. He waved von Stauffenberg away, much to von Stauffenberg's great relief. In a few more minutes, he knew the bomb in his briefcase would detonate. Von Stauffenberg placed the bomb on the floor and whispered to Colonel Heinz Brandt here that he wanted to see if his telephone call had come through yet.
last-minute information for his report. Then, he left the room. The meeting continued. Hitler and his officers poring over the map spread out on the table. Colonel Brandt, moving closer to Hitler, trying to get a better look at the map, found the briefcase in his way, so he gave it a nudge. Just enough to push it all the way under the table and completely behind the solid support. A short time later, the bomb went off. Von Stauffenberg had waited outside for the blast. When it came, when he saw smoke pouring from the building and then bodies being carried out, he rushed back to Berlin. There, he joined with the other German army officers arresting high-ranking Nazis. But von Stauffenberg was ignorant of one essential fact.
The room was shattered. Many officers had been killed or wounded, but the oak supports on the table had shielded Hitler from the blast. Although his right arm was injured, Hitler was alive. As Nazi leaders gathered around him, he plotted his revenge. Von Stauffenberg was arrested and shot that night. A reign of terror was launched that involved over 5,000 Germans, most of them totally innocent. Some of the key plotters were taken to Berlin's Platzensee prison and hung from meat hooks by piano wire. As they slowly strangled to death, their agony was filmed for Hitler's private viewing. Had von Stauffenberg's bomb done its job that July morning, had Hitler died then and there, the course of the war would have been abruptly altered. Today, the map of Europe, the history of the world would be quite different. And Hitler would have died then, but for the casual, half-unconscious gesture that nudged a briefcase a few inches further under an oak table. The entire course of history can turn on the smallest of details. Believe it or not.
Give them an edge. Give them attitude.
Cactus plants like these are a common sight in Mexico and here in the deserts of Southern California. There's one called a century cactus. It is a source of remarkable abundance for those who know how to tap its resources. And all you need to do that is a sharp knife. If you require a needle and thread, the thorn becomes a needle with built-in threads. The threads are obtained by slitting the spike into fibers, like this. You can use it to make a few stitches, or you can weave the fiber into cloth and make yourself a serape, like this one. Then, if you want to write a letter, just cut off as many sheets as you need and wait for them to dry. That's what the Aztecs of Mexico did, as well as the Spanish conquistadors. You flatten it out, and when it dries, you can write on nature's very own stationery.
If you're sloppy and you get an ink spot or two on your finger, the century cactus will take care of that too. You just break it open, rub the ink spots on the moist part of the spike, and presto, you're clean. But that's not all. If you cut out the stalk of a mature plant, then you can dip out a liquid that tastes something like vegetable juice. After fermentation, it becomes one of the more popular liquors of the world. In Mexico, they call it pulque. It's got a bite that's even sharper than its thorns. But I'm sure it would keep you warm on a cold night. In nature, the apparently ordinary often provides some unexpected surprises. This stretch of the Pacific Ocean is a case in point. It lies off the southern coast of Korea. Each year, the local people come to celebrate what they call the miracle of Moses. Tides running as high as 30 feet batter this coast. Yet on one particular day, every year, islanders relive a local legend which tells of an old man marooned on a neighboring island, yearning to return to his home. His prayers were answered. And now, once each year, the miracle is repeated. A rocky path emerges from the sea, and the islands are again united. The water recedes to open a path to an island more than a half-mile away. Scientists, the phenomena is as predictable as clockwork. It occurs when the Earth, the Sun, and the Moon are in a direct line. The tide rushes out, and then, exactly 1 hour and 5 minutes later, it rushes back. Next year, at the same time and place, it will happen again. The miracle of Moses. In Australia, ancient drawings etched in stone provide evidence that even prehistoric man was impressed with the peculiar skills of this bushy little creature called an echidna. It looks like a porcupine, lays eggs like a bird, has a snout like a pig, and a tongue that is over 6 inches long. Termites are its favorite food. The echidna waddles like a duck, rolls like a ball, and is as quick as a cat. Although it is sometimes eaten by Australian Aborigines, the echidna has few natural enemies. To protect itself, the echidna burrows like a drill, straight down, until it looks like just another bush in the wilderness. Perfectly disguised, the echidna vanishes, leaving a landscape as deceptively tranquil as the surface of a pond in England. Yet, lurking beneath the surface, a poisonous spider is on the prowl. It is the only creature of its kind that lives entirely underwater. Called a diving bell spider, it moves about with a portable bubble of air wrapped around its lower body, which permits it to breathe. A larger bubble attached to a plant provides a home. The air is replenished by occasional trips to the surface. In search of prey, like this small shrimp, the spider relies on stealth
and a quick killing venom which it injects when it bites into its victim. The struggle must be brief, or the spider will use up its air and drown. To eat, the spider must return to its bubble home. Once inside, it will devour the shrimp. Scientists cannot explain how this spider developed the skills to live underwater. They can explain, however, how a village in Africa's Zambezi Valley became known as the home of a nomadic tribe called the ostrich people. By living in extreme isolation for generations and by intermarrying within the Doma tribe, the feet of over 25% of the village people have come to resemble those of an ostrich, a genetic condition scientists call the lobster claw syndrome. For members of the tribe, however, the condition is accepted as normal. For them, there is no stigma attached to being called the ostrich people. The genetic trait is also expressed through abnormal development of the hands, sometimes resulting in odd numbers of fingers, multiple thumbs, and webbing between the fingers. Except to inspire the need for special sandals, the unique physical developments of the Doma people seemingly have no effect on ordinary life in the village. Only about 400 members of the Doma tribe are known to exist. They choose to create their own society in villages far away from the curious eyes of the outside world. Now, however, with the knowledge that the condition is the result of inbreeding, many are seeking mates outside the tribe. In time, the tribe may reverse the process that resulted in their being called the ostrich people. Believe it or not. The glass snake is so fragile that if it is touched, its tail falls off. Believe it or not.
Only strong hair can survive.
In Alaska, playing games is one way of preserving traditions. Once a year, contestants gather to compete in the World Eskimo Indian Games. This event is the knuckle hop. To win, a contestant must use only his knuckles and his toes to make his way around the course. It is a race against the clock and exhaustion. The games reflect skills once vital for Arctic survival. Staying on your feet while walking on slippery ice takes the same control and balance needed to keep from falling off a slick log. To keep the contest on an equal footing, liberal globs of grease are applied before each attempt. For some contestants, starting is easy. It's stopping that's hard. One of the more difficult events is called simply the high kick. The competition is a version of an Eskimo children's game. In the final rounds, the target is raised 5 feet 10 inches from the floor. Champion Carol Pickett is only 5 feet 3 inches tall. For Carol Pickett, it is a spectacular achievement. Other events are direct tests of survival skills. In this competition, one man carries 4 others, or tries to. To carry such a burden, about 600 pounds, obviously requires an athlete of considerable strength. It also requires passengers able to hold on while he completes the course. Strength, ingenuity, and teamwork. For Eskimos and Indians, such qualities assured survival in unexpected ways. At one time, a big bounce like this may have been the only way for a hunter to get high enough above the ice to spot his prey. By transforming tradition into competition, young Eskimos and Indians honor an ancient heritage. Multiple record holder Reggie Jewell sums up the meaning of the games for fellow athletes.
We set records at these Olympics. There's a lot of elders sitting out there that used to play these same games. And we haven't yet come close to breaking their records. Not yet. We got a long ways to go.
To honor a sports tradition in Nanning, China, thousands gather for a demonstration of an ancient martial art called wushu. Many participants are 60 or older. For young audiences, however, events such as this have inspired a new interest in learning the intricacies of a sport that results in the ability to perform remarkable feats of physical control. Extremely dangerous, these exercises take years to perfect. In many ways, the performances are similar to traditional exhibitions of physical strength, with one major difference. Here, the life of the performer is at stake. The swords are razor sharp. To prevent disaster, the athletes rely on nothing but their mastery of wushu, total mental control of physical pain. The weight of the stone should be enough to force the swords through his body. If not, then certainly the hammer blows will. The swords do not even leave a trace on his back. To wushu masters, cold steel may be sufficient to penetrate wood. Their flesh, however, seems immune to its deadly edge. The ability to control individual muscles, to create a barrier impervious to steel, is the result of years of physical conditioning. In another demonstration of wushu, a team of men prepare an astounding test. An elderly wushu master, protected only by a cloth, will permit massive concrete slabs to be laid on top of him. An additional slab is added to make the total weight 3,400 pounds, all resting on an old man's chest, and his unshakable faith in the power of wushu. The woman is an official commentator. She is asking the spectators to count to 20, while the wushu master moves the massive stones simply by flexing his chest. Aging masters willingly risk their lives to perform such demonstrations. For them, even possible impalement on a bed of nails is a way to convince others to share their devotion to the practice of wushu. Now 62 years old, Sun Yu-Yan began practicing wushu as a child. The stone weighs 300 pounds. It will be broken in half where it lays, while the crowd counts each blow it takes. Of all wushu masters, Sun Yu-Yan is unique. Not only is she a woman, she is the mother of the gentleman who swung the sledgehammer. Believe it or not.
To celebrate his victories, a Mongolian conqueror played polo with the skulls of defeated generals. Believe it or not.
So how's your head?
A typical artifact of modern life. To some future archaeologist, this paper cup might just be priceless. A vital clue about our civilization and how we lived. But for now, its use is over, and it is only garbage. Garbage. Our civilization produces so much of it that getting rid of it has become a major problem. In New York, the city sends its garbage to a massive dump on nearby Staten Island. Over 2,000 acres of garbage. The operation here runs 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. It has to. Garbage is buried here at the rate of over 11,000 tons a day. 11,000 tons a day, 6 days a week. And that's expected to more than double soon, to over 22,000 tons a day. Every 24 hours, a fresh layer of dirt is put down to keep flies and rats away. Now, the garbage here is piled pretty deep or pretty high, depending on how you look at it. By the year 2000, some of the piles could be over 500 feet above sea level, which will make them, believe it or not, the tallest mountains on the entire eastern shore. To move mountains of garbage to dumps like this, municipal governments have developed a variety of semi-automatic methods. The underlying idea is to replace men with machines so that more garbage can be picked up at one time. There is no doubt that such technological advances have improved the efficiency of various city sanitation departments. Yet, no matter how ingenious the methods they use, garbage collectors are fighting an uphill battle. The simple but astonishing fact is that Americans generate more than 150 million tons of garbage each year. For students at the University of Arizona in Tucson, the nation's monumental flow of garbage has created a new course of study. It's called garbology. As part of a class in archaeology, students transform the city dump into a research project. Regularly, they don gloves and aprons to dig into the odoriferous items that other people throw away. One aspect of the study is to determine the value of what Americans call garbage. To analyze their findings, Each item is given a computer code.
Okay, milk, number of items 2, code 011, 132, 164.
Composition, textile.
Okay, what's the code for cat food?
Among other things, researchers have discovered that, in Tucson at least, the average family wastes about $100 worth of groceries a year. Based on that statistic, garbologists estimate that what Americans throw away could feed all the people in nations like Canada. The class is supervised by Wilson Hughes, assistant director of the research project.
Since we started, one of the most interesting things that we found out is the amount of food waste that's being thrown out in Tucson. Some parts of town, up to 20% of the food that goes into the house is thrown out as waste. Here's an interesting example. This is, we found this today, half-eaten ear of corn. They ate half of it, they probably got full or something, couldn't finish it off. It's a typical example of the food waste that's thrown out in Tucson.
By gathering such statistical evidence, garbologists are creating a new and startling portrait of American life.
Estimates have been made that Americans are wasting about $16 billion worth of food a year at the household level. 200 years ago, the amount of garbage that a typical family would put out would only fill up a little part of this desk for a year. The amount of garbage in a year would only fill up part of this desk. 100 years ago, it would probably fill the entire desk, almost fill the entire desk. Today, the amount of garbage put out by a typical American family in a year would fill this room several times.
In San Diego, California, almost 20 years ago, scientists recognized the need not only to deal with garbage, but to handle the city's constant flood of raw sewage. 25,000 gallons of San Diego's daily output flows through these tanks. To separate out the solids and reclaim and purify the water, scientists look to nature for an easy, inexpensive way to get the job done. The result was the creation of a floating garden. Hundreds of thousands of ordinary tropical hyacinth plants thrive there on a daily diet of processed raw sewage. As they grow, the plants absorb the heavy concentration of chemicals that make the polluted water undrinkable. As the hyacinths bloom and multiply, technicians remove mature plants. The darkened roots are evidence that they've done their job. The natural transformation of sewage into clear, clean water. To complete the process, the water is filtered twice. Then, as the final step, other natural elements and compounds are added. Raw sewage becomes drinking water thanks to a tropical plant and the ingenuity of creative engineers who refuse to let anything go to waste. At experimental farms, part of the hyacinth crop is used to feed livestock. Despite their origin, the plants contain no toxic materials. To some, sewage is considered a natural resource, like coal or oil. To capitalize on that ever-growing supply, 6 small huts on the outskirts of Lufkin, Texas, house an experiment that gets a daily dose of raw sewage. These are Louisiana red wiggler worms. Their job is to eat the sewage. By devouring almost 150 pounds of sewage a day, the worms save the city of Lufkin about $100,000 a year. According to city officials, it costs next to nothing to run the operation. The worms are cheap to begin with, and they renew themselves. By itself, a single worm would have little effect as a sewage disposal unit. However, When almost 2 million go to work, you not only get rid of sewage, you end up with a small mountain of their leavings to sell as first-rate fertilizer. In Los Angeles, garbage is not always garbage. On a quiet block of 62nd Street, industrial waste has been transformed into works of art. They are on permanent display in an outdoor gallery, the front yard of freeform sculptor Lou Harris. To gather the pieces of his startling work, the sculptor scours the scrap heaps of the city. Each creation is distinctively unique, yet parts intentionally remain the garbage they once were. Lou Harris doesn't believe in changing the original shapes. He simply puts them together to make a personal statement about modern society.
Oh, I've been working with the garbage for about 9 or 10 years. I collect most of my garbage at industrial plants because there's a lot of garbage there. I make art out of it. This fence came out of the garbage. Even the cable, from the cable TV, they throw away everything. And I love it.
Garbage, truly, is in the eye of the beholder. In Bangkok, the 240-foot-high Wat Arun temple is covered with broken dishes. Believe it or not.
Hey, Santa.
This is a lot harder than it looks. But there's one street performer here in Venice, California, who makes it look a lot easier than it is. He's a juggler, but that's like describing Notre Dame Cathedral as a church. Sensational may be too strong a word for what he does, but dangerous certainly isn't. To see Robert Gruenberg perform, all you have to do is gather round.
I haven't learned how to stop yet.
He warms up with bowling balls, then the fireworks begin.
Please, don't anybody try this. Try to talk your friends into it first. Here we go. Attempting to juggle 3 flaming swords. 1, 2. Just kidding! Now, here we go. 1, 2, and 3. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And now, through the legs.
A chainsaw running at full speed is part of Robert Gruenberg's potentially lethal finale. Street performers, they do their act for nickels and dimes, but I suspect that they really don't do it for the money at all. They do it for the applause. In Mexico, street performers like Francisco Lujan, at home here with a younger brother, rely on sidewalk show business to provide family income. The busy streets of Mexico City provide him with an audience. Every day during peak rush hours, he sets out to entertain passing motorists. As traffic signals force the cars to stop, he transforms himself into a human blowtorch. To earn the coins, Francisco Lujan risks the very real threat of being poisoned or of being severely burned. For Francisco, the day's work doesn't end until nightfall, or when rain makes it impossible to continue. Despite a desperate willingness to risk his life, Francisco earns only about $8 a day. Some call what he does foolhardy. He calls it earning a living. dangerous acts always seem to attract a crowd. On the sidewalks of New York, juggler Tony Vera warms up his audience by taking a bicycle for a ride. The hard way. Tony Vera is 24 years old and was inspired to become a juggler when he saw a circus at New York's Madison Square Garden. This routine, with a member of the audience as a participant, is a circus classic. For the volunteer, it requires a certain fearlessness, and for the performer, the confidence born of strength and practice. By perfecting such routines, Tony Vera hopes to create a career as an actor and a stuntman. In the meantime, he collects applause as his reward. In Paris, there is proof that the performing arts do not have a monopoly on sidewalk show business. Here in front of the city's busy restaurants, a young artist named Eve Forrest painstakingly recreates the classic work of the famous Italian artist, Michelangelo. The work is done in chalk. A footstep could erase it. For passers-by, the use of the pavement as a canvas motivates a curious and sometimes even a generous reaction. Although contributions are always gratefully accepted, Eve Forrest is far from being a typical starving artist. He is, in fact, a graduate of one of the world's most prestigious art schools in Paris. To support himself, he works as a commercial artist. For him, the reproduction of Michelangelo's work as pavement art is a labor of love. To complete one picture requires 1 or 2 days of effort. In only hours, however, passing feet or a sudden rain can destroy every trace of his accomplishment. His work will soon vanish, seen only by a lucky few. Yet strangely, for Eve Forrest, that is satisfaction enough. Believe it or not.
These are the complicated architectural plans for one of the most unusual cities in the world. The streets form a fascinating geometric pattern, radiating outward like spokes in a wheel. The city is Washington, D.C. It was designed by Charles L'Enfant, a French architect and engineer. But it was built because of the incredible skill of a remarkable mathematician named Benjamin Banneker. Banneker stepped in to save the day after L'Enfant had a falling out with the founding fathers and left Washington in a huff with all his plans rolled up under his arm. Well, that should have been the end of Washington, D.C. The plans were impossible to replace, or so everyone thought, except Benjamin Banneker. Banneker was appointed to the government commission charged with supervising the construction of the city by none other than George Washington. That was back in the 1790s, when the fledgling United States was still saddled with the peculiar institution of slavery. Banneker was a free black man, a gentleman of impressive credentials for that time or any other. It didn't matter to Banneker that the architect had taken a walk with the original plans. He knew that he could build the city exactly as it had been designed. To the astonishment of his colleagues and presumably of George Washington himself,
Banneker proceeded to reproduce every detail on every page of the original plans from memory. Believe it or not.
The classic, controversial, complete story. Don't miss a minute when Kyle MacLachlan and Sting star in the 4-hour expanded version of the science fiction epic Dune, 3 p.m. Eastern, Sci-Fi Sunday. Now stay tuned for Misfits of Science, next on the Sci-Fi Channel.